Hello, my name is Hakon, and welcome back, all you fabulous fighting fantasy aficionados, for what might be the last episode of me playing Midnight Rogue. At least last time I felt I got so close to the end that perhaps it's time to round things up and see if I can reach the very, very end and solve this book. So, just to recap a little bit, if you haven't watched any of my previous episodes, which you should, because I am going to skip a lot today. So last time I was skipping the beginning, and the time before is the last time that I actually went through from the start. So, just to recap a little bit, though, for those who are impatient or forgetful, or maybe just want to see the end game of this, in Midnight Rogue, you take on the role of an apprentice thief, an apprentice of the Thieves Guild in Port Blacksand, which is the city known as the City of Thieves from the game book of that name. So it's a city that's full of scoundrels, and you are one of them. But of course, there are rules, and you need a certain skill set to be qualified as a thief, of course. And so this is what you're trying to accomplish. Now, in order to become a full-fledged member of the Thieves Guild, you have to do a specific task. You have which is what this game book is about. You have from dusk until dawn to steal a particularly valuable and hard to obtain object. And in this case, it's a gem called the Eye of the Basilisk, which you know very little about, apart from the fact you know who owns it. It's a merchant called Brass, and you know that his symbol is a coin. And with that piece of information and the skills that you've learned before you start, and some equipment, is all you get in order to accomplish this very difficult task. So, the beginning of the game is in the city itself, and you are first of all you're trying to find Brass's house. You're trying to pick up some clues, perhaps, in this sort of shady area of town, which is called the Noose. And you also get clues that tell you that you should also go to Brass's office in the merchants' quarters of the city. And combining those things together, you get three clues as to the exact whereabouts of the gem. And then you find the place, which is a place called Barrow Hill, where you discover that there's an underground dungeon under the barrow. So it goes from a stealth city kind of game onto a classic dungeon crawl, which I thought was a little bit unexpected and a little bit disappointing. But otherwise, I really enjoyed this book so far, and I'm hoping to enjoy the rest as well. I think I'm going to catch you up on any details as they become relevant. One more thing that has become quite a big part of my playthroughs now is the choice of skills. Now, in addition to the normal rules of fighting fantasy, this game also provides you with an option of picking a few skills. 3 skills out of 6 possible ones, I believe it is. And of course, when you have that kind of dynamic, usually there's a combination of nice to have and must have. So there might be skills that allow you to make things easier so that you are more likely to win the game. But then again, there might also be skills that are essential, without which you simply cannot win. And in my playthrough so far, I have established that having pick lock skill is 100% essential. In addition to that, it seems that you also need either a skill called Secret Signs or Spot Hidden, one of the two. It seems in all cases where it's required, one or the other works. And then there's also skill Hide and Sneak, and those two also seem complementary in the sense that it doesn't seem to matter at the moment which one you pick as long as you have one of them, but at the moment it still doesn't seem like that is a 100% essential. There's also a climb skill, but right early on it is possible to obtain a grapnel and hook, which allows you to do climbing without a climb skill. So it might be that climbing is essential, but the skill probably isn't. Excuse me. So that's where I'm at the moment, and throat is a bit rusty today. Must be the cold weather, as you might guess. If you live in Britain, you would know if that this is quite a cold time of year. This particular week, at the moment, my office has a temperature of about 16 degrees, which is very cold actually, but it's getting warmer now, so it'll be more comfortable in an hour or two. Central heating is on, yeah. Oh, by the way, for those of you who might get a bit worried now and sort of think that I've sold all my fighting fantasy books, because they usually live right behind me here, I have been rearranging my bookshelves and also made a few new shelves. I upcycled some pallet wood and used some shelf brackets to create some new shelves just behind my door off to the side. I might show you a picture. I'm not going to move my camera now because it took me so long to get things ready here. And now, of course, they don't have to be double shelved anymore, because on that shelf that they used to live back here, whereas there's no there's Philip K. Dick, there's science fiction, and there's Haruki Murakami books. I had to stack them behind each other to make room for all of them, and of course I don't like doing that because it makes it so much harder to reach the books at the back. So I've moved them over to the side, all the books in one place. You can see all of them at the same time. I'll show you a picture. Right, I think I'll just get started and see where we get along in the dungeon. So right, back on my desk, so just move that out of the way. Right, so I got my supplies, as I like calling it. I got my dice, which I may ignore more and more today. I got my book, most importantly, my pen, which has multiple colors, and a pencil as well. Really cool. I got my character sheet, excuse me, and my maps. Now, as I said, this leads into a dungeon crawl. So I will start this game from the point where... So this is the beginning of the game. This is the actual city. That's not interesting to me right now. I've done that. I'm quite happy that most likely I've done what I need to do. There may be some equipment I haven't picked up. I don't know yet. And towards the end of that map, you also have another choke point, most definitely a choke point, where you find a tomb. And you defeat 3 skeletons, reanimated skeletons, and you also obtain a magical weapon, which is very useful. And it's a point not long after that where there's a little bit of branching in the path. This is where the last part where I ended up last time, and when I got actually very, very suitably and karmically and prophetically, I suppose, I got killed by the Eye of a Basilisk. Not the gem, the Eye of the Basilisk, but the actual eye of an actual basilisk, which, as you know, turns people to stone if you look into their eyes. So I'll just get started from a point just before here where there is some branching and see where I get from there. So I'll start at paragraph 79, excuse me, where I seem to have just gone through a door. So going through the door, I'm just double checking now there is no other... Well, there is some branching just before as well. I'm just wondering, should I start a little bit earlier? Because I just went past an ogre. No, actually, this is where I should be starting, because there are more options as well. Right here from 342. So I'm going to go to 342 and just see what the options were there. So this is where, at this point, there is no branching, I think. So this is where it starts branching a little bit and just signifying, I believe, another section of the dungeon. and there might be some different options. Okay. At the end of the short passage is a great iron door. It is as high and wide as the passage itself, and one look tells you that you would never be able to break it down. There is a keyhole in the door, but you realize that the lock on a high security door like this will be very difficult to pick. Beside the door is a hole in the wall containing an iron key on a hook and a small, brightly colored scorpion. The scorpion does not move, but you know that if you try to take the key, there is a good chance that it will strike at your hand. Will you try to take the key if you have pickpocket skill? Turn to 13. If you do not, turn to 264, or will you leave it alone and try to pick the lock? Now, so at this point in the game, you will not have been able to reach this point with the with the pickpocket skill. Most likely. I'm saying most likely because at this point they still haven't established whether hide or sneak is essential. If you do not, turn to 264, will you leave it alone and try to pick the lock? Turn to 58. Now, last time I did pick the lock, so it is possible. Oh yeah, so this is actually. Oh, sorry, I was thinking there was a branching here, but the it said N, and I thought that meant north, but actually that means no as picklocket skills. So that means that I do apologize. This is actually not where it branched. It does branch where I thought initially it did, at paragraph 79. So you do get through this door, and I want to start at the point where you have gone through the door. Okay, right. So going through the door, you find yourself in a passage which leads off left and right, which is the branching I was talking about. Will you go left or right? And last time I went right, and there's no indication yet of anything on that side being essential. So this time, just to figure out where all things connect here, I'm going to go left and go to 241. So I'm right away going to go into some territory I don't know yet. Excuse me. You follow the passage for a little way before it opens out into a small chamber, apparently once a storeroom of some kind. As it is littered with all kinds of debris. It's apparently once a storeroom of some kind, as it is littered with all kinds of debris. As you move cautiously across the chamber, is it debris? I'm always a bit sort of confused whether to say debris or debris. I do believe debris is the American way of saying it, and which means I probably should say debris because I try to keep my English a little bit more British, although I do use some Americanisms from time to time because of cultural exposure, of course, during my formative years that have affected the way I speak English. Anyway, so debris. As you move cautiously across the chamber, you are struck down from behind by a flying chair. Lose 1 stamina point. The chair flies at you again, and as you pick yourself up, test your luck. I'm just going to do a roll. 7, yeah. If you're lucky, turn to... let's see, just get my... So we have here 2 possibilities. A luck test. So at the moment, you lose stamina and you test your luck, which makes it sound like this is not the ideal way to go, but you never know. It might still yet be the one you have to go in order to succeed at this game. 355 or 282. So that's lucky or not lucky. Okay, so I'm lucky and I go to 355. The chair misses you by a whisker as you throw yourself to one side. Turn to 68. 68. You can't see whatever is throwing the furniture about, but as the small table rises into the air and flies towards you, you realize that there is a poltergeist in the room. Will you back out of the room or try to make it to the other side? Now, in this book, this is actually a book that seems a lot more linear than most books. and of course, sometimes when there are options with branching paths and you take the wrong one, it directs you very quickly back to the other one. So it is a possibility now that this actually is a path I shouldn't be taking. But I'm going to try to get to the other side in this case. And so back out of the room is 1, 2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to put that over there because that probably will bring us back to going in the other direction. And then we have trying to move on to the other side, 3, 3, 9. Sometimes you don't want to move on to the other side, at least not in the sense of dying. So I'm going to, let's see, back out or other side. Okay, I'm going to try to get to the other side, see what happens then. The poltergeist attacks you 3 times as you cross the room. Skill 6, stamina 0. Roll for attack strength as normal, but if your attack strength is higher, you have not wounded the poltergeist, merely evaded its missile. If the poltergeist has a higher attack strength, you lose 1 stamina point, fight 3 rounds of combat, then turn to 59. So that's not too bad. Put down there, 59. Okay. So skill 6, my skill is 12, combat skill, yeah, my combat skill is 12, so 1, 2, and 3, and I even rolled a 12 there at the end, which means that he doesn't injure me at all, and I go to 59. As you lunge through the hail of missiles towards the far side of the room, you spot a door set into an alcove. If you have spot hidden skill, turn to 126. If you do not, turn to 317. I do have spot hidden skill because it seems to be one of the ones that are the most useful of spot hidden and secret signs. Secret signs at the moment hasn't provided any clues that I couldn't have gotten any other ways. So whereas spot hidden has been a skill that allows you to avoid traps and thereby at the moment seeming more suitable for survivability in this particular game. So I do have that, and let's see, this is where I mark it with black. And although, by the way, I noticed now I'm using blue a lot more than I use black when I use this pen. And I actually had a look inside just now, and it seems that blue is down to about here. Black is still up here somewhere. So I'm running out of blue. And also the blue one is starting to get a little bit leaky. You can see the staining, although you can't really see it. There's a bit of staining at the front here of the blue color, which means that it is due a change. I'm not sure if you can just tear out the interior things of this and replace it with a Bic thing. It is a Bic pen, so I'll have to look into that later. Otherwise, I'll have to get a new one when one of the colors go down, which would be a bit of a shame. Anyway, 59 spot hidden. Let's see, 126 spot hidden. 1, 2. Let's just put that up there. 126 spot hidden. The reason I'm using black for the skill requirements is it makes it easier for me to see on the map where a particular thieves skill is applied to the options, and so it's easier to then tell later if you analyze and try to figure out what is the requirement for getting through this, to find out if that skill is actually essential or just nice to have, and which skills will give you the best survivability as well in the game. If you do not, 317, so that's 317, not. So I do have spot hidden, and I go to 126. It just occurred to me, now that you have, my pen is staining a little bit, which means it's very easy to get ink on your fingers. And of course, when you get ink on your fingers, it's easy to get ink on the book. But this is when something like plastic covers on the book can become very useful as well. So while a plastic cover isn't really essential for a book like this is not a very valuable book, it does a few things. It keeps stains off, and And also it makes it harder to fold the book so far that the spine gets creased. It's holding it back from being folded that way. So it keeps the spine neater as well, more easily. Okay. Spot hidden, yes. As you plunge towards the door, you spot a slot in the ceiling above it, the sort of slot which might house a portcullis or some other trap. Will you keep on towards the door or turn around and try to leave the room by the passage? So again, second time, you're given a chance to turn around, which leads me to believe that that is most likely what you should be doing. With T-turn around. I'm just going to see what happens though, and of course I've obviously we're quite at the early start of the game now, so if this goes wrong, we're just going to start over and make different choices. Just to eliminate this path from the possibilities of being correct is a nice thing to do. So I'm going to, especially at this stage in the game, it's nice to... Oh, hang on. Yes, because 317 is the same as, of course, if you don't have spot hidden skills. So basically, the only difference between spot hidden and not spot hidden is that you see that there's a portcullis. That makes it really sound like this is a trap and that you actually are meant to get trapped by the portcullis, but let's find out. You throw yourself at the door, trying to burst through before another of the poltergeist's missiles hits you. The door doesn't budge, but the portcullis comes crashing down behind you, trapping you in the alcove. You try the door again, but you realize that it is a dummy, so it is a trap then, nailed to the wall as part of the trap. You try frantically to lift the portcullis. Roll 2 dice. If the result is equal to or less your skill score or less, you lift the portcullis and escape. Okay, so skill. If not, you fail to shift the portcullis, you are still trapped, and the poltergeist attacks you once again. Roll for attacks with normal, blah, blah, blah. After the poltergeist has attacked, you may attempt to escape again, etc. Repeat this procedure until you escape from the trap or die in the attempt. So, again, it's quite clear you were given a few options there to leave. This is not the right path. There is only one right path. It's very linear, but you need these little ones as well. So you throw yourself across the room with bric-a-brac flying all around you. The poltergeist attacks you 3 times as you run across the room, etc., etc. Same procedure as earlier. 8, 4, 3, 12, and 4, 10. So I don't get injured this time either. If the poltergeist wins, you lose 1 stamina point, blah, blah, blah. Then leave the room and run back down the passage, turn to 351, which leads us back to where we would have been if we had turned right at the beginning. So all this bit there is, I'll just put that red there to show that that is the wrong choice. All that bit is completely just the wrong path, basically. It's not part of the correct path at all. The correct path here is always going to be turning right. There we are. I'm going to 351. Okay, so now we've established that that is not the correct path. So after a few yards, the passage comes to an abrupt end. The only way onward is a hole in the floor, leaning down into the darkness. Will you go down the hole? If you have climb skill, turn to 216. If you do not, turn to 297, or will you go back and try the other end of the passage? In this case, of course, I don't have climb skill, but I do have grapnel and hook, which works the same way. So I'm going to go to 216. So, correct path, 216. Bracing your hands and feet against one side of the shaft and your back against the other, you work your way carefully downwards. After about 40 feet, the shaft opens out into the ceiling of a passage and you drop cautiously to the floor. Turn to 236. 236. The passage is roughly carved out of the bedrock and leads away to the north. You follow it for a few yards and find that it ends in a large and strong-looking door. You try the door and find that it is not locked. You open the door quietly and advance into a darkened room. Your torch does nothing to dispel the darkness. Only the heat on your face tells you that it is still burning. The darkness must be magical. You hear a shuffling, slithering sound from the darkness. Will you advance into the room or go back? Now, this room is excuse me, where the basilisk lives. Now, I still don't know whether you need to actually kill the basilisk and if there is something in the room that you need to find. What happened last time was I went into the room, I fought the basilisk and defeated it, and then went out again, and then I ended up going back into the room again from the other side with the light that I found at the other side. And then it turns out the basilisk wasn't dead after all, but it opened its eye and looked at me, and I failed the luck roll, and so I got turned to stone. Now, again, this seems a bit sort of elaborate, how almost as if the book's telling you not to do this at all, to avoid this thing. So I'm going to but the thing is, can I go back? Because it ends at the door, it says. So maybe this is the only way through. I'm just checking now. There is only one way forward, so isn't there? I'll just actually read the paragraph that sort of, if you try to turn back now, because now basically turning back, it only leads you back to where you came down, so it'll be hard to go back up again. So just to see what it says there, it says, you stop to think. You are certain that the eye of the basilisk lies ahead. If you go back, you will have failed your test, and you will spend the rest of your life wondering whether or not you could have succeeded. On the other hand, if you go on, you will have to face whatever is in there. It may be able to see in the magical darkness, and if it can, you will be at a terrible disadvantage. You think hard about what to do. If you decide to go on after all, turn to 352. If not, you have failed your test and your adventure ends here. So actually now you're given a choice to press on or to give up, which is very unusual for any game book, I think. And interesting, therefore. So you do like this, and then this can also lead to giving up, which would never happen, of course. You would never just give up like that, but you can actually choose to finish it there if you're too scared to go into the room. So I have to go into the room and fight whatever is there. And of course, you might seem at a disadvantage, but if you're finding a basilisk in the dark, you are actually better off than if you did it in the light. You advance cautiously into the darkness, wondering what is in there. Turn to 24. If you have sneak skill, turn to 24 if you have sneak skill, 331 if you don't. Now, I still haven't established whether sneak or hide is essential. So perhaps for the purposes of doing something different, I'm going to say I have sneak skill now, and go to 24. So see what happens then. It does sound to me like you really are trying to avoid encountering this basilisk. You hurry silently across the darkened room, feeling your way along one wall. You feel another wall in front of you and quickly find a doorway and a wooden door. You push and pull, but it doesn't open. It must be locked. If you have picklock skill, turn to 324. If not, turn to 245. And I do have picklock skill. Oops, that's the wrong color. So 324, and if not, turn to 245. Do I have a 245 here? I don't have the option on my, let's see, so 245, 245, no. Big look. Okay. Okay. 324. You step through the doorway into a torchlit passage. You shut the door quickly as you hear a scrabbling, slithering sound from the darkened room behind you. Just outside the door stands a small bottle containing a liquid which glows very brightly, so brightly that it hurts your eyes. You wonder if it will penetrate the darkness of the room. Will you find out, or will you ignore the bottle and carry on up the passage? Now, I'm going to ignore the bottle. Now, there may or may not be something in that room with the basilisk that you need, but the way this game is structured now, it makes me believe that your main mission right there is to avoid the basilisk. I'm not sure, but I will go on that hunch. So I'm going to carry on up the passage, 252 onwards and upwards, or downwards maybe in this case. It's a dungeon after all, so sometimes I get deeper and deeper as you move in. Okay, so now I've got something else. Not been here before. You follow the passage for what seems like miles as it winds onward. Okay. Finally, you see a light in the distance, and approaching cautiously, you can see that the passage opens out into a cavern which is empty except for a lighted torch which hangs in an iron bracket on one wall. On the far side of the cavern, another passage leads off into the darkness. You cast a long shadow in the torchlight as you cross the cavern. It seems to move with a life of its own, but you tell yourself that it's only your imagination. But you are wrong. Before you can reach the other side of the cavern, your shadow dances along the wall in front of you and suddenly climbs down off the wall, becoming a solid shadowy being as it moves to attack you. Will you fight your own shadow, or will you try some other course of action, such as trying to run away before it can attack you, trying to douse the torch, trying to avoid casting a shadow, trying to disrupt your shadow? Now, interesting twist. Lots of options. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options actually. So excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 options. So 11, fight. Fighting your own shadow doesn't sound like a good idea. I mean, you'd never win, really, would you? If you hit your shadow, the shadow would hit you because it's your shadow, and yeah, you know what I mean. 1, 5, 4, run away. Douse the torch seems like a good idea, actually. Douse. Avoid casting a shadow. How do you avoid casting a shadow? You go into a shadow, I suppose. Disrupt. Whatever that means. I think my first instinct is to douse the torch. And then again, the shadow has already come into being. It's already become solid. Avoid casting a shadow. I don't even know how I do that, but maybe I'll just have a look and see what that would entail. See if there is a good option there. Your mind works quickly, and you decide that the easiest way to defeat your own shadow is to stop casting it. But how? If you have hide skill, you must have the skill itself. A black hooded cloak isn't good enough here. Roll 2 dice. Okay. If the result is equal to your skill, etc., etc. If you don't have hide skill, turn to 311. I don't have hide skill because I just established that I have sneak, so I can't have both. So I'm going to put this up on my map anyway. So okay, 85 gives us 2 options. hide. Okay, so that's 184. 311. So 311. Okay. So I'm going to 311. You flatten yourself against the cavern wall, desperately trying to get out of the torchlight. As you do so, however, your shadow flits across the wall behind you, and you lose 2 stamina points as it attacks you from behind. What will you do now? Will you fight your own shadow or run away from it? So now you only have 2 options left, actually. Fight or run. I just still want to find out, because what I really wanted to try was to douse the torch, actually. That was my first instinct. I just wanted to see if I'm curious about this one. So try to douse the torch now. So your mind works quickly. There is some kind of sorcery at work here, and you don't like the idea of fighting your own shadow at all. If you stop casting a shadow, you won't have a shadow to fight. But how can you do this? You drop the torch you are carrying and hurl your weapon at the torch on the wall. Don't forget to cross it off your adventure sheet, etc. If you have nothing else to fight with, you must deduct 3 from your attack strength until you find another weapon. Actually, I've already got a secondary weapon, don't I? So roll 2 dice. If the result is equal to your skill score or less, turn to 5. Okay, that was a failed skill test. So let's see, skill tests. So skill or... But just for the sake of playing the game now, because I'm at such a point where I just want to find out what the correct path is, I'm going to be a little bit flexible now and ignore dice a little bit. That was the mail arriving. So skill 5, skill, and 249. Okay. Okay, let's say I succeeded that and see what happens. I want to see what happens if I fail, actually, first of all. 240. You hurl your weapon at the torch, but it glances off the bracket without dislodging it. What will you do now? Will you fight your own shadow? Or will you run out of the cavern as fast as you can? So, again, those are the only 2 options you're left with if you don't succeed in that. Okay. What happens if you succeed at dousing the torch? Your weapon flies with deadly accuracy and knocks the torch. That's not deadly accuracy because you're not trying to kill someone. It flies with accuracy, absolute accuracy, etc., but not deadly accuracy. You're not killing the torch, are you? And knocks the torch out of its holder. It falls to the floor, sputters for a few seconds, and goes out. That's not how torches work, but whatever. You decide to douse your own torch as well, just in case the light from that casts another unfriendly shadow. It is now pitch dark, and you feel your way along the walls of the cavern, trying to find the passage which will take you out of it. Test your luck. Just going to leave your weapon there. That doesn't make any sense. Now, this is a bit illogical, Captain, as some people say. But I can't be throwing away my weapon because it's magical, so I wouldn't use my main weapon for that. But anyway, still a bit weird, this one. Does it mean that in the end, the only way to get out of here is actually to fight the shadow? I just want to find out now. Okay. It seems the correct option is to disrupt the shadow. The thing is that option is a bit vague, isn't it? What's avoid, disrupt? It's a bit sort of what exactly does that entail kind of thing. So I'm going to just go through that now. So, and instead of doing any of those other nonsense things, I'm going to disrupt my shadow. Okay. Your mind works quickly. There is some kind of sorcery at work here, and you don't like the idea of fighting your own shadow at all. Then you have an idea. Shadows are caused when something blocks out light. There are patches of darkness. Now, if the shadow that's preparing to attack you is made of darkness, then you can probably use another source of light, such as the torch you are carrying, to dispel it. You hold the torch high, trying to keep it in a position where it will dispel the shadow cast by the torch on the wall. Excuse me. Turn to 67. 67. Holding your torch before you, you edge closer to your shadow. It fades as the light strikes it, becoming less substantial as you move closer. It seems to sense the danger of the light, since it makes no move to attack you as you head for this passage that leads out of the cavern. If you have spot hidden skill, turn to 381. If you do not, turn to 27. So I do have spot hidden skill. So I'm going to put that up here. Like so. 381 spot hidden or not 27. Not. Okay. As you hurry out of the cavern, you notice a series of holes in the walls of the passage, 3 on each side, at chest height. You crawl underneath them, and as you do so, a small dart shoots out of each hole. If you had been standing, they couldn't have missed you. Gain 1 luck point for evading the trap. I'm just wondering now, if you don't do that, do you die? No, you don't die. Gain 1 luck for evading the trap and follow the passage to 191. So, +1 luck, and then you go on to 191. Still linear game. So, at the moment, of course, I'm not 100% sure whether you needed to fight the basilisk or not, but this seems that this is the only correct path onwards, leading to a new choke point here, 191. Okay. You follow the passage onwards. After a little way, it broadens out and becomes more regular. Excuse me. The walls are made of stone slabs rather than being hewn out of the rock. You turn a corner and find a dead body in the passage. Another thief, by the look of things. A trail of blood indicates that he crawled back along the passage after being seriously wounded. You notice a symbol sketched on the floor in the thief's blood. He must have put it there as he lay dying to warn anyone who came after him. If you have secret science skill, turn to 39. If you do not, turn to 231. So these secret science ones are basically the secret symbols used by thieves. Now, it seems a bit strange almost that this shouldn't be universally taught to all people who try to become thieves. Just saying. Or maybe just not very good at it because you were doodling in class instead of actually working on the symbols. In any case, secret science 39. But so far, any secret science paragraph I have found has given you information that you could have got in other ways. or it would have been replaced with spot hidden. So yeah. Anyway, in this case, I'm at the moment, of course, unless I'm being flexible about my skills, I don't think secret science is essential. So I'm going to say no. Excuse me. You look at the symbol carefully. You think it's one of the secret signs of the Thieves Guild, but you have no idea what it means. still, you're fairly sure that there is something nasty ahead, and this dead thief was trying to warn you about it. You offer a silent prayer to the god of thieves, asking him to look after the dead thief in the next world and to look after you in this world. And then you prepare to move on. It's quite a nice touch because you don't often get stuff like that in these game books. It's very seldom you get something about the character that doesn't come from yourself. So it's good. It's a characterization now of the character you're acting in this story. That's quite nice. 302. Sometimes there should be more like that, because the thing is that in game books, and I've covered this in one of my videos about writing game books as well, which still is a work in progress, of course, in my case, that if you let the reader in on some of the information that the character would have had in the story, of course, you add a little bit of immersion and also motivation in many cases as well. And it tells you something else. It's not that everything is very mechanical like in many of these game books. It's you are told in the background about what you're doing. But then once you get into the adventure or the dungeon crawl or whatever, it's you as the reader who decides what makes sense. And with complete disregard to what the character perhaps would have done, because you're not given any information about that. So yeah, I like it when you have these little things that actually tells you something about the character. That's one of the very few times, as in the whole of fighting fantasy until this point in book 29, that I've seen that. So book 29? Yes, book 29. Okay. 302. As you turn to move on, a glowing, almost transparent, bright blue something comes flying down the corridor at you. It looks a little like a severed human head, but you have no time to examine it closely as you throw yourself to one side. Roll 2 dice. Skill test, yeah. Okay. So skill and 12 or 3, 3. The boxes on my map tend to get more and more loose as the longer I do this. The top 3 lines are good, and then the last one is just a little squiggle. Anyway, I used to be neater. The first few, I don't know if you remember, it's been a while, it's been a long time, when I did Return to Firetop Mountain. I do believe my squares were actually rather square on my map, and the arrows would have been neater as well. It's just once you get used to doing something, it's you get a bit lazy almost. It's a bit like learning to write, isn't it? You have to learn the exact pattern, and then as you write, it just becomes more and more loose with it. Right. So skill, and that is success and fail. And we have those 2 options there, and the temperature in my room is almost up to 20 now. It's getting more comfortable. Oh, by the way, yes, in addition, it's winter, and I did mention that earlier, and you may have noticed there's more light on me than usual today, and that is because I am also using a daylight lamp here. You can see the light from it there on my hand. You can see that on my, yeah, it's over that way. And of course, it's one of those to keep the winter depressions away, the SAD, which is something I get symptoms of in winter usually, but I don't get it very bad. I think I used to have more of it when I lived in Norway, and not just because it's further north, but also because the place I lived is in Bergen, is a city between mountains, and also because of the way it's located, you get a lot of rain and clouds, as the clouds come from the sea and the west, and they sort of scrunch up, and then they have to move upwards as they reach the mountains, so that so both the mountains and the clouds meant that in the middle of the day, in the middle of winter, it could be really dark sometimes. and you get a lot less daylight than you would do in a place like here, where it's relatively flat and more open, and also a lot less cloudy. But still, getting a bit of extra light like this from this daylight lamp is good for you. So I do notice a difference, I think, sometimes. Feeling a bit more energetic in winter than I used to. Okay. Skill test and success turning to 12. Yes. You hurl yourself to the floor, and the thing, whatever it is, misses you by a whisker. Again, it looks like the writer likes things missing by a whisker. It hovers above the dead thief's body for a... What dead thief's body? Oh yes, the dead thief's body. Yes, we just had a dead thief here. It hovers above the dead thief's body for a fraction of a second, then sinks down into it, soaking into the dead flesh like water soaks into a sponge. The body twitches once and then drags itself to its feet. Your scalp tingles as the dead eyes stare sightlessly into yours. And the dead thief shambles to attack you. Will you fight the animated corpse or try to run away? I do have a magical weapon, which means I'm able to fight an animated corpse, probably. But let's see what we have here. So it's going to keep going left here now on my map. Okay. So 82, fight, or 192, run. I'm going to fight, actually. You stand firm, with your weapon ready, as the animated corpse shambles towards you. Fight it normally. Skill 5, Stamina 6. Let's see, because it moves so slowly, you can run away after winning a round of combat if you wish. I'm not going to roll for combat. I do have such an advantage in combat anyway. And so you can still run away if you choose to fight. And 23. Win. Okay. The corpse drops to the ground, but as you watch, the spectral blue face oozes back out of the dead flesh and hangs in the air before you, chuckling evilly. It is a possessor spirit, and you must fight it. If you have a magic weapon, I thought that might be relevant, turn to 142. If not, turn to 111. Okay, so we have 142 magic, 111 not. Of course, at this point, you can't actually get to this point without picking up a magical weapon, but of course it is possible to lose it if you use it to douse the torch without going back to pick it up, which doesn't make any sense, but there you go. So I do have a magic weapon and go to 142. Fight the possessor spirit normally. Every time you lose a round of combat, you lose 1 luck point in addition to the usual 2 stamina points. 10, 10. It doesn't look like you're meant to really fight this thing. I won. First round, second round, third round, not the fourth round, not the fifth round, sixth round. Yeah, and that's it. That's it. I'm not going to bother too much with the numbers. Because I'm still just trying to find the right path now. We're not going to be too meticulous about the dice rolling. Just doing it sometimes just for fun. So it sounds to me like this is a battle that you are meant to avoid. So when the possessor spirit goes into the other dwarf, or the dwarf, I'm saying dwarf, the other thief, not dwarf, then that's your chance to get away, I suppose. The possessor spirit disappears in a shower of bright blue sparks. A rapid search of the body turns up 5 gold pieces, a throwing knife, a long piece of heavy wire with a hook at the end, and a flask. The flask has been cracked in the fight, and the potion is leaking out. There is enough potion left for 1 drink, but only if you drink it now. Turn to 247 if you drink the potion. Excuse me. Which is the potion of skill. Okay, only the wire counts as a backpack item. Yeah, okay, so I'm picking up those things. And so it's a throwing knife. So it sounds like those are very useful items, and that wire, hook, which is a backpack item. There's a carry limit to how many backpack items you can have. Okay, flask. Okay, so okay. You move onward along the passage, following the trail of blood left by the dying dwarf. The trail leads to a door in the left-hand wall of the passage. The door stands ajar, and you peer through the doorway into a room furnished only with a great iron cage. Locked in the cage is a dwarf. "Let me out," it pleads. "I'm a thief like you. If you let me out, we can look for the eye of the basilisk together." If you let the dwarf out of the cage, turn to 6. If you make sure he's a thief first, turn to 86. If you ignore him and carry on down the passage, turn to 155. I don't believe he's a thief. I think this is a deception again. We have seen there's magic here, and this is the kind of thing that the other dwarf might have tried to warn me about. So I'm thinking that yeah, no, I don't believe a word of what he's saying there. I'll put down the options. Okay, so we have 6, let out 6, let out 86. Check he's a thief. How do you check someone is a thief? Okay, and 155. Ignore, which I'm sure should work fine too. I'm going to go with the option of checking if he's a thief because I'm curious to see what that entails. Something makes you suspicious, and you decide to make sure that the dwarf is telling the truth. After all, the dead thief you passed was severely wounded in this room, yet there is nothing here but a caged dwarf without a scratch on him. Who is the master of the Thieves' Guild, you ask? If the dwarf is really a thief, he will know the answer. The dwarf does not answer your question. He reaches through the bars of the cage, trying to catch hold of you. He seems to grow bigger. His skin becomes green and scaly. The spines erupt all along his back. With a ferocious snarl, the shape-changer bends the bars of the cage, preparing to attack you. You want to stand and fight the shape-changer, turn to 33. If you prefer to leave the room before it frees itself, roll 2 dice, etc. Yeah, so. Okay, so I was right. He is not a thief or a dwarf, indeed. So 33. Fight. And then it's 229. 229, all 3, 6, 7. Skill. Okay. Yep. So I'll do a skill check. I want to leave now. So 229. I do notice that's a different paragraph than if I just ignore him earlier. But that might not be relevant. Before the shape changer can free itself from the cage, you leave the room, slamming the door behind you. Turn to 155. That was the same as ignoring it, wasn't it? Just my terrible writing now. Yes. Okay. Let's look at 153 for a moment. 155, and that is the same as leaving the room. I think I'm going to change pages now on my map. So page 4, and starting with 155 there. Okay. You carry on down the passage. It narrows abruptly, and the dressed stone walls give way to rough-hewn rock again. Soon you see why. Both walls are dotted with small holes, about 3 inches across. Between the holes, the floor is littered with bones and other rubbish. A rat, disturbed by the light of your torch, skitters down the passage in front of you. As it goes, it disturbs some of the rubbish, and instantly a sharp-jawed, caterpillar-like creature, something like a rock grub, but smaller and faster, shoots from each of the holes, attracted by the noise. The rat doesn't stand a chance and is quickly torn to pieces. You wait for the grubs to return to their holes and then move forward cautiously. You must move absolutely silently in order to get past without disturbing them. Turn to 25 if you have sneak skill, and 128 if you don't. So, again, I'm not sure if sneak is essential or not, but possibly. Sneak and 128. 1, 2, 8. Not. Yes, I did establish that I had sneak already in this particular playthrough, so I'm going to turn to 25. Hardly daring to breathe, you pick your way through the bones and other debris. It seems like hours before you are past the holes, but finally you make it. You let out a sigh of relief, and as you do so, the grubs shoot from their burrows again. You shudder to think how sensitive their hearing is. Turn to 84. Okay. 84. I just want to see what happens if you don't have sneak skill there. 128. Yeah, well, you still survive, possibly, but you would lose stamina. 84, yes. A few yards further on, the passage widens again and is faced with dressed stone as before. You come to a door on the right-hand side of the passage. Would you listen at the door, try to open it, or ignore it and carry on down the passage? It's so hard to walk past a door, isn't it, in a game like this, because you know you can't go back as well. That's another thing that makes this a bit different to a proper desktop role-playing game, of course, or tabletop, is that you can't just go back and check the door afterwards. You have to do it right away. So 3 options. I was going to move the door over here. So listen, 10. Listen. Then I'm going to have here open, 140, open. Interesting, you have an option for listen and open separately, as if listen, because if you listen and you hear something, then you might still want to open it, but is that going to be a different paragraph? Will somebody be able to hear you listening at the door? I'm always trying to analyze and sometimes overanalyze why there are some options and not others. 374. I'm going to listen at the door because it seems a sensible thing to do. You don't want to just burst into a room. Ah, yes. There was the reason why you had listen and open as 2 different options. Okay. You put your ear to the door and are taken completely by surprise when the plank whips round and hits you. Lose those 2 stamina points. The door suddenly unfolds into a great humanoid shape. It is a wood golem, and you must fight it. When you win a round of combat, turn to 1, 2, 3. So that is the reason why, and I was right to be skeptical about the strange options there. Let's see what happens when you win a round of combat. What kind of weapon are you using? If you are using a magic weapon, turn to 53. If you're using a torch, turn to 98. Let's see. Why would you use a torch as a weapon? Let's see. 1, 2. Any other kind of weapon, 183. Okay, I'll just put the options up there. Okay. 53. Magic, 98. Torch, or 183. Okay, so I'm using a magic weapon, obviously. Sword that I got from the skeleton. Wood golems are highly resistant to all forms of magic. Oh, your magical weapon will behave like a normal weapon for the combat. So you'd have to fight with a torch probably to yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to bother rolling that battle. And I'm going to win and go to 136. Let's see. 8, 4, 1, 3, 6. Okay. With the wood golem destroyed, you are able to look through the doorway into the room beyond. It is a small room, barely 10 feet square, and it is filled with a huge pile of gold and gems. None of the gems looks particularly big, but the eye of the basilisk might be in here somewhere. Or is this another deception? I don't know. If you search through the treasure, turn to 46. If you ignore it and carry on up the passage, turn to 374. I don't know, I'm a bit skeptical about, I mean, it could be, the door could be like a sort of a double bluff kind of thing. So you make a door that attacks you on the way in, and then it seems like you've got to something that's important or valuable, but then that might also be a bluff. There seems to be a lot of that going on around here. I'm going to check what's there, though. Yeah, I'm going to check out of curiosity. And of course, it's another trap, isn't it? You go into the room. There's more treasure here than you could ever carry, but a pocket full of gems will be enough to make you rich when you get out of here. Although the object of your test is the eye of the basilisk, the guild didn't say that you couldn't keep anything else you found along the way. You reach forward to pick up some gems, and suddenly the pile of treasure rears up, and you find yourself wrapped in the coils of a brightly colored snake. So yeah, I was right. There was no gems in here. Lose 2 stamina points as it squeezes you. You have heard of the Skitalis or treasure snake, which traps its prey with illusions of treasure. You have fallen for its illusion, and now you must fight for your life. It's 8, 10. I'm not going to bother rolling for that one either. If you win the first round of combat, the snake is not wounded, but you have escaped from its coils, etc. If you lose, you are still trapped. Snake squeezes you for another 2 stamina points, etc. You cannot wound the snake until you are free of its coils. If you win, turn to 168. 168. I'm just going to do it very easily now without dice rolls. I've played this game enough that I'm a little bit sick of the dice. Finally, the snake dies, and you find that there is no treasure in the room, just the bones of its victims. You do find some provisions in the backpack, though a little stale, but enough for 2 meals. You also turn up a scroll of parchment. It appears to be a map of some kind of maze. Now, this is interesting because I'm going to remove that thing again. It is possible, of course, that the map is an essential item. Map. Okay. Finding nothing else of interest in the room, you leave and carry on along the passage. So, maze. Okay, so there is going to be a maze at some point, and if you have a map, that will make things a little bit easier, probably. 74. At last, the passage comes to an end. Excuse me. You had begun to think that, excuse me, that it would go on forever, but you find yourself peering into a huge cavern with no visible exits. Is this the hiding place of the Eye of the Basilisk? The cavern is featureless, and its roof is lost in darkness, beyond the range of torchlight. You move cautiously into the cavern and start to check the walls for concealed doorways or hiding places. Suddenly, your attention is caught by a rattling noise from above you. You raise your torch and look up, trying to see where the noise is coming from, and see an immense spider, fully 5 feet across the body, dropping like a stone towards you. Roll 2 dice. Yeah, skill. Successful. Okay. Just going to move that over here. Skill. 207 or 304. Skill or no. Okay, so 207. Successful skill test. You throw yourself to one side as a giant spider crashes to the cavern floor and barely have time to roll back to your feet before it's upon you. Fight the giant spider normally. If you lose a round of combat, lose 2 stamina points and turn to 285. So we got 285. If you kill it, go to 353. Okay. 353. I presume if you lose a round of combat, it'll try to start rolling you up and stuff. or poison you. It can be poisoning you, yeah. Once the giant spider is dead, you are able to look around you. There are no passages leading out of the cavern apart from the one you came in by, so you decide to investigate the ceiling, which is lost in darkness. If you have climb skill, turn to 265. If you do not, turn to 399. So 265. Climb. I don't have climb, but I do have grapple and hook, which, according to the description, works as climb skill. And 399 not. I'm just wondering now if not having climb skill means it's the end. No, there's luck involved in actually climbing then. So you can still climb or still get onwards without the climb skill, which seems to be all the times that climb skill has been seemed essential, and that seems also to have been the case. As you climb, you realize that the cavern is really a wide vertical shaft. Soon you reach the giant spider's web, strung right across the shaft from one side to the other. You shudder as you notice several silk-wrapped packages hanging in the web. Each is about the right size and shape to be a human body. If you investigate the bodies, turn to 290. If not, keep on climbing and go to 341. Okay, 341 or investigate 290. Of course, I'm going to investigate because I always investigate. There we are. As you make your way across the web, you notice that some strands are sticky and some are not. The spider obviously uses the non-sticky strands to retrieve prey that has been caught on the sticky ones. You must try to avoid the sticky strands as you investigate the bodies. Roll 2 dice. You may subtract 2 from the amount rolled if you have spot hidden skill. So that's a skill check, and I would succeed that one. As I have spot hidden, that means I can't fail it actually. So 380. Excuse me. 382. 82. And 222. Fail. Success. Skill test. Okay. Carefully cutting the spider silk from around the body, you find that it is indeed human. You avoid the face, you don't want to find out whether it's anyone you know, and concentrate on looking for usable equipment. You find a backpack with enough provisions for 2 meals, but that is all. Very interesting to provision. Now, it's a bit strange, isn't it? I mean, there's The Thieves Guild controlled all the thieves in this city. You are tasked as an apprentice to steal the Eye of the Basilisk, which has just arrived in town. And you go to this place, and it seems like people have been trying to get into this dungeon forever, almost, as it's always been there. And there's sort of a regular thing that thieves go in and try to steal what's there. It doesn't really add up, does it? It's, yeah. Because I thought part of the idea was that it was a gem that was new in town and therefore not stolen yet. And of course, the Thieves Guild would be in control of anyone who's trying to steal it. They would know that they would have to give permission almost, probably, to, I don't know. It seems a bit strange. Because how can you, the Thieves Guild people would have to be absolutely certain that nobody had stolen it already. How would they know? Anyway. 341. So I'll move on. 341. At the top of the shaft, another passage leads away. As you follow the passage, it gets damper and damper until moisture is running down the walls, and the walls and ceiling are coated with occasional patches of mold. Finally, the passage comes to an end. The wall at the end is covered with a thick coating of bright yellow mold, which looks almost like the fur of some strange animal. There seems to be no way onward, but you are sure there must be a hidden exit. If you've seen more than one apparent dead end already. If you have spot hidden, turn to 88. Again, spot hidden sounds like it's maybe not essential, but at least super nice to have. 88 spots hidden, or 378 not. Okay, spot hidden. You notice something glinting in the blanket of mold that covers the end of the passage. Looking closer, you see that it is metal, part of a doorknob, by the look of it. You reach to turn the doorknob, and then you see something else. To one side of the door, that must be underneath all the mold, there is a lump which you thought was just an irregularity in the rock. But as you look more closely, you can see that it is a body. The mold has grown over it and obscured its shape, but it is definitely a body. Stop and think. Remember hearing somewhere that there are types of mold which fire clouds of spores into the air the moment that anything disturbs them. The spores are poisonous and cause death almost instantly, giving the mold a fresh supply of organic matter to grow on. The problem is you have to open the door without disturbing the mold. If you have pickpocket skill, turn to 197. If not, what will you do? And of course, we have established you can't really have pickpocket skill at this point, or you could, possibly, but it seems very unlikely that you could have had pickpocket skill at this point. Although, at this point, the only skill we have established that is 100% essential is picklock, and either spot hidden or secret symbols. So it is still possible to have picklock skill. Or pickpocket skill, sorry. So, options. So 1, 9. Oh, actually, that's the wrong color because it should be pickpocket. So 1, 9, 7. Pickpocket. You can burn, but that's disturbing it though. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Cover your nose and mouth, charge a door and hope for the best. 115. Then again, it is also possible that the effect of the mold isn't that the spores are deadly, but that, I don't know, touching it can cause something. Okay, I'm seriously saving my game now. Burning with a torch. I don't know. It doesn't sound very feasible. Because it would fill. I mean, you would get lots of spores if that happened. So I am thinking. Right, I think I'll just have to charge a door because it just seems the most sensible thing to do. I'm cover my nose and mouth. So I decided that the only thing to do is cover your nose and mouth to protect you against the worst of the spores. Charge the door and hope to break through to the other side before there are too many spores in the air. What do you have to cover your face with? If you have a black hooded cloak or some rags tied around your feet, turn to 63. If you have neither, you will have to make do with just holding your breath. Don't I have a... Haven't I picked up a cloak or something at some point? Not really. But it's a bit weird. Why would you can't be a thief without a cloak. It just doesn't make any sense. Let's see. I can't remember having picked up. Have I picked up a black hooded cloak? I don't think so. 63, 172. Cloak. Hold breath. Okay. But you should be very good at holding your breath because part of hiding is to be able to hold your breath for long stretches of time. Let's see. You hold your breath and charge the door. Roll 2 dice. So that's a skill test. Yep. Okay. 190. Skill 107. Skill fail. 190. And you hurl yourself against the door, and instantly the air is filled with a dense mustard-colored cloud of spores. The door swings open, though, and you half fall through the doorway into a small chamber, not stopping to breathe until you're well clear of the spore cloud. Turn to 69. Now, there's one flaw in this plan, and that is, of course, that the spores would be able to get into your body through the eyes as well. So, yeah, it's not just breathing. You have to close your eyes and your mouth and your nose and everything. Okay, 69. Okay, I'll just move that over there, maybe, on my map. You find a passage leading out of the chamber and hurry down it, eager to escape the spores. The passage forks, and you can see a number of turnings leading off from each side of either passage, like a maze. Do you have a map? If you have, turn to 362. I do have a map. 362. Map and 81. No map. So I did find a map, 362, although I'm not 100% sure that is the best way to go. You pull the map out of your backpack, study it for a little while, and mark out the quickest route through the maze. Following the map, you come through the maze in a matter of minutes. It's a good job you picked it up. You could get lost in that maze forever. Turn to 178. I don't know, that's a bit boring. Okay. It would have been nice to see what the maze looked like. But and if it was anything like Zagor's maze. Now, since I don't know what the maze looks like or where it goes or anything, I'm just going to move that up 178, the bypass up there. And also, it will be interesting to find out if the maze is just it's just that you can lose track of where you are, if there are traps. Yeah, I don't know. You finally come to a small chamber carved out of the bedrock, and I'm just going to do a new page now because I don't know how big the maze is going to be if I ever need to map it out. So I'm going to go 178 FF29 page number 5. You finally come to a small chamber carved out of the bedrock, devoid of ornaments except for the occasional patch of bluish-green mold growing on the walls and ceiling, which isn't really ornament, but there you go. In the middle of the chamber, there is a chest on the floor, flanked by 2 statues of armed warriors, apparently carved from some kind of translucent crystal. This should be where the eye of the basilisk is, surely. On the other side of the room is a door. As you approach the chest, one of the crystal statues starts to move. It draws a slim needle-like sword of crystal and steps between you and the chest. You must fight the crystal warrior. Skill 10, stamina 13. When you win a round of combat, turn to 169. I'm not going to roll this one. Okay, 169. If you're using a stone axe, the crystal warrior is wounded. Conduct the rest of the combat normally. And I do have a stone axe. I can use that. If you're using any other kind of weapon, the crystal warrior is unharmed. You realize that you need a blunt weapon to wound it. Conduct the rest of the combat using the pommel of your sword, etc., etc. Now, if you are using X kind of weapon, doesn't make any sense because never in this game are you given the option of actually choosing what weapon to use at any particular point. So, what really, yeah, you can swap weapons. In any case, I'm going to say that I make this and win and go to 99. But that was just one of the 2 crystal warriors. The first crystal warrior lies shattered on the floor. You watch the second closely, but it does not move. You take a look at the chest. It is securely locked. Turn to 360 if you have pick a lock skill. We do. Cannot make this game without it. 360. If not, you cannot open the chest, leave the room, and turn to 316. This is a kind of a bug in the game, an error, I would call it, because at this point there's absolutely no way you wouldn't have pick lock. So what the game could tell you is, since you have pick lock skill, turn to 360. Finished. Okay. Three, 1, 6. No. Not. Okay, so 360. As you pick the lock, a jolt of electricity lashes up your arm and throws you across the room. Lose 4 stamina points. You can eat a meal then. If you're still alive, you open the chest. Inside is a disc of black obsidian, almost a foot across and so highly polished it reflects the light of your torch like a mirror. Which means it is a mirror, by the way. Not just like a mirror. Ooh. It's an obsidian mirror. You reach in to take it. Turn to 182 if you have spot hidden skill. If you do not, turn to 20. Okay. I do have spot hidden. There might be some trap here. Okay, 182 and 20, and that's the wrong color. Spot hidden and not. I do have spot hidden, so 182. You see that the disc is resting on a fine silver wire which runs out of the chest and connects to the ankle of the second crystal warrior. What will you do? Will you cut the wire? Oops. Cut the wire, turn to 41. 41 cut. Try to lift the disc without setting off the trap. If you have pickpocket skill, turn to 208. Excuse me. Let's see, so cut, 208. Pickpocket. 49 not. Or will you leave it alone and go to the door, 2316? Which I really should move up here. 316. Okay, that is also an option there. Cut the wire, 41. I'll try to cut the wire, see what happens. As soon as the wire is cut, the crystal warrior attacks you. Okay. If you win, take the obsidian disc, 2316. Okay. Counts as a backpack item. At this point, I would have had freed up some space just by drinking the brandy, I suppose. Get some help from that. So obsidian disc. It sounds like it could be something that's essential. You just don't know. 316. You go through the door into another rock-cut chamber and find that you have reached the hiding place of the Eye of the Basilisk. A huge yellow gem stands on the black stone. So, whoever did this illustration didn't read the brief and didn't realize the gem was supposed to be yellow. The basilisk's eye is yellow, therefore a gem called the Eye of the Basilisk is yellow. This is a ruby. Oh well, anyway. The huge yellow gem stands on the black stone's pillar in the center of the chamber, and a column of light shines from an unseen source, engulfing the gem and the pillar in light from floor to ceiling. You are elated to have come to the end of your quest, but your elation is tempered by caution. There is bound to be a final trap of some kind. What will you do now? So, take the gem. That obviously can't be the right thing. Throw something to knock it out of the light, or try to block the light. Of course, you can block the light now with the obsidian disc. That's what I'm thinking. Uh, 130 and 292. So block, knock, or just take. Okay. So I'm going to try to block the light. 292. What have you got that can be used to block the light? Obsidian disc, black cloak, or something else. So 87, obsidian, 308, cloak, or 397, something else. Try the obsidian disc, see what happens. Carefully, you move the obsidian disc into the light. As the light strikes the disc, it is absorbed and the disc is unharmed. You reach carefully beneath the disc to take the gem. The disc is very heavy to hold steady in the light one-handed, and it begins to waver. Roll 2 dice. That's a skill check, yeah. Because the thing is that what makes sense here is that obviously you want to be able to access the gem yourself, and so you need the means to access it easily available on hand for you to do. So you have the disc there guarded by the 2 crystal warriors, and then that's for you to go and handle the gem if you want to move it. If you're Brass or one of his servants probably would do that. So yeah, and I did succeed the skill test. (214) or 380. Let's see, fail and skill. Okay. 214. You keep the disc steady as you reach in beneath it to take the gem. Withdrawing the disc from the light, you hold the gem in both hands. You can hardly believe that you have passed the test. Then you look at the gem more closely, and your heart sinks. There is a crack in one side and a small bubble in the middle. The gem is a fake. a worthless piece of glass. Turn to 400. As you stand looking at the fake gem, a secret door opens in the back of the chamber, and out steps Rannick, followed by several other prominent guild members. They're all smiling. Yes, I know it's a fake, grins Rannick. The whole job was. But the dangers were real enough, and you used your skills and equipment well to overcome them. You've passed your test, and the Guild Council, whom you see here, has no hesitation in admitting you to full membership of the Thieves Guild of Port Blacksand. Your disappointment turns to a choking mixture of elation and relief as the other thieves crowd round to congratulate you. And thus endeth the game. Right. That was a little bit of a surprise ending, I think. I was not expecting it to end that way. Well, that means the obsidian disc is absolutely essential to... well, maybe not. I mean, there might be other options there. Now, what this game is... I'm just going to swap views now. One thing I noticed in this game is that very often it's not just a single path that leads to victory. Now, there's, of course, some things you have to do, and then there are some things that will make it easier for you to accomplish your task. When you are led a little bit astray, when you make the wrong choices, you often led back onto the correct path, which is quite nice, actually, because that means that whenever you play this game, you're sort of directed more and more towards the end, and you don't end up with a sort of a dead end that kills you off much sooner. And there's hardly any item that is essential in this book either, which is a little bit unusual too. I'm a little bit curious about the maze. I don't know how complex it is. Maybe one day I'll try have a look and see if I can go through that without the map and map it out. But I quite enjoyed this. I hope you did as well. And that means that next time, and of course now I can't just reach behind me. Next time I will be playing Chasms of Malice, which is a title I've actually referred to in one of my previous playthrough episodes, because I do believe there was a time when I was killed by falling down the chasms, and I called the episode Malicious Chasms. So I don't know if anyone picked up on that, but that was a reference to this particular title, Chasms of Malice. I have no idea what this game book is about. I'm not going to read the blurb now, but I quite like going in and not knowing anything and then being a little bit surprised by what's happening, or just, yeah, keeping an open mind. Anyway, so I did ignore some combat rolls and stuff, but generally, based on my playthrough today, there's quite a good chance I would have been able to make it if I'd actually bothered to roll all the dice. Lots of provisions I could have eaten to regain stamina. There didn't seem like any of the items I picked up that were essential. So, yeah. Apart from the magic weapon, which you sort of have to pick up because you can't avoid picking it up, and the hammer, of course, the same place. So yeah, it's a good game. I think a good game book, a little bit different, and I was expecting and hoping that there wouldn't be a dungeon crawl in this one, but there was, which is all right, I guess. But yeah, anyway, it sounds like, of course, since the whole thing was a setup, that the merchant brass was in on it as well, as part of the plan to do the test. It's quite an elaborate test for. And you would think that, being the Thieves Guild, that you actually would be able to have a sort of a genuine test as well. But then again, it sounds like potentially then, of course, the dead thief that I came across was one who actually had tried to do the test as well, possibly. I'm not sure, and failed. So maybe it's actually a sort of a regular testing ground, this, for for apprentices of the Thieves Guild. I don't know. That could be part of another story that isn't in these books. But yeah. But the thing is, the book actually gives you a little bit of that kind of world-building feel to it, which is something that is sometimes lacking from many of these fighting fantasy titles as well. And of course, there was a little hint of characterization, not just what you put into the character yourself as a reader, but the book also giving you a little bit of information about what the character is like, and something of the character's culture, which is something I quite like, even if it's just in a small amount in this case. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to playing next time. It is Christmas. I can't guarantee I'll be able to make videos all the time, so I'm not going to say when the next episode will be. I have been trying to do one episode a week now, but I'm not going to say for sure that will be the case. So yeah, we'll see. You just have to wait and see. And also, I might want to do something else as well. I've been doing a lot of fighting fantasy videos now. I might want to do some other stuff, and then get back to fighting fantasy in a few weeks, perhaps. We'll see. In any case, thanks for watching. And if I don't see you until Christmas, have a lovely one. But you probably will. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.